Welcome everyone. My name is Lisa Baxter and I'm here today to talk about a management guide that we recently published in Crop, Forage, and Turfgrass Management on the improved management of the bermudagrass stem maggot. Now, the bermudagrass stem maggot has been around for well over a decade now. Literature has had it reported in Hawaii and California, but agronomically it didn't make a big impact until it showed up in Georgia in the summer of 2010. Since then, it has really expanded, and depending on temperature and moisture each year, we will have reports as far north as Kentucky and as far west as Texas. Agronomically, though, we see the biggest impact kind of here along the Gulf Coast and throughout Georgia just because of the sheer number of bermudagrass acres that we have in this region. The bermudagrass stem maggot is one of the most detrimental pests that we have to bermudagrass production throughout the southeastern United States. While the fall armyworm will cause severe damage periodically, the bermudagrass stem maggot is the only pest that we see continuously every single year. The damage that we see resembles that almost of frost damage or even disease, but the chlorosis is restricted here to those top 2 to 3 leaves of that stem. You'll notice that these leaves down here are still relatively green. You may see some evidence of a leaf spot down there, but that extreme chlorosis is always at the top of the plant. If you're still not sure if this is the bermudagrass stem maggot damage or not, you can pull those leaves out from that central shoot and you'll see insect feeding damage here at the bottom. Occasionally, you'll find the larva down in that stem, but it's incredibly difficult to find out in the field. Here you'll see the larva that is actually causing that damage within the stem that's easily identified out in the field, but it's the adult fly that's more easily scouted for. We can scout for this fly with a simple insect sweep net, much like we would many other forage pests. We want to make sure that we're swinging that net down deep in the canopy just as that dew's drying off the grass to get the best population of flies out there. Once we get about 20 in that sweep sample, or we're roughly in the midsummer part of our growing season, then it's time to employ a suppression strategy. We have several different suppression strategies available, although the chemical suppression is by far the most effective use of these different strategies for the BSM. We don't want to rule out physical suppression if we have an instance where there's just not enough volume of material or we're seeing a lot of damage and that we're not going to get a good hay harvest off of that field. If grazing's not an option, we would go in and clip that field down to reset it before employing those chemical strategies. We have found over time that good cultural management, including routine hay harvesting, maintaining a balanced fertility plan, keeping our soil pH near neutral, and so on, helps the grass further resist that BSM damage. There's been some indication that biological control could be effective. Specifically, spiders are very effective at controlling those adult flies. However, when we look at the population within a hayfield, there's not enough of those predators out there to effectively suppress the BSM. Therefore, chemical really is our best option. When we talk about chemical suppression of the BSM, we're looking at well-timed insecticide applications to just suppress or disrupt that adult BSM fly population to avoid those yield losses. We want to make sure that we're using a pyrethroid insecticide. Any of them will work. We're applying that material before the dew dries. Our boom height is set low, and we're using at least a spray volume of 12 to 15 gallons of water per acre to get that material down in the canopy where the flies are. 2 applications are required per harvest period, one at 7 to 10 days after harvest, and the second one 7 to 10 days after that first application. In most parts of the region, we do not have to spray for every harvest during the season, as our damage is most severe from late July into early September. Here we have proposed a life cycle for the BSM with respect to a typical Bermuda hay growth period. We have our life cycle here from day one over on that top row, but multiple generations can exist in a field at any one time. And so we have some that will emerge from pupae that were escaped that hay harvest period. And then we have adult flies that will move back into the field. And so at any one time, there's 2 to 3 generations of flies out in that field. And so we have timed those insecticide applications strategically to target the maximum number of adult flies that should be in a particular field during a hay growth period. We know that our fine stem varieties are more susceptible to the BSM damage than the varieties with thicker stems or a coarser stem. And so I've highlighted the ones here that we would define as a coarse stem variety. I believe all of these here do have what we would call a stargrass influence or Cynodon influensis influence in their heritage. And so you can see that overall these numbers are much lower than those Cynodon dactlyon counterparts. In general, the finer the stem, the more susceptible that particular variety is to the BSM damage. So moving forward, knowing that those fine stem varieties are more susceptible, our work is focusing on breeding and selecting for tolerant varieties that maintain positive agronomic attributes. These include good tonnage, good forage nutritive value, and so on out in the field. You can see a really good example of that in that image there at the top. This is a very susceptible variety. It's actually coastal bermudagrass that you see on the left, whereas here on the right we have the more improved Coast Cross 2. Again, a thicker stem, coarser variety that has a lot of those positive attributes that we like in a forage bermudagrass. And now it has another big positive of being bermudagrass stem maggot tolerant. So thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions after reading the management guide, please feel free to reach out. My information is here on the screen, and I'll be happy to answer questions via email. Thank you.